Hi, folks. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to this new episode of the RiseUp Radio. My name is Ashish. I'm the founder and CEO of Risely. And today we have a very special guest with us, Kelli Dragovich. Kelli, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ashish. So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. Folks,
Yeah.
Kelli brings with her such a rich experience in the HR function. She has been in this function for over 2 decades, been a leader in the HR function for several years now across multiple organizations. I don't think I can really do justice, introducing her. So, Kelli, can I, invite you to talk a little bit about yourself and
Of
share a little
course.
bit about yourself with our audience today.
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's great to be here. Hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, so look, I've been in the HR space for about 25 years. I am Bay Area, California, born and raised, so a rare native, I guess you could say now. So I live here in the Bay Area. The first 10 years of my career was between public companies that are a bit
Mm,
larger. So I
mhm,
kicked off at Intuit, and then went over to Yahoo after that, and then got a little restless, so to speak. So I'm pretty entrepreneurial, right? Love building and moving and kind of all the things, and they were wonderful experiences. Got a little slow at the end, and so
mhm,
for the past 15 years, I've been in the venture world, Ashish. So I've been building, heading up people teams, building these neck break speed companies over the years,
yeah.
companies like GitHub and Looker, most recently Pendo, and been on both sides of the M&A process. So
Mhm,
GitHub getting acquired by Microsoft, Looker getting acquired by Google, and running that integration.
mm.
So basically get to see all the messy, fun stuff through those rides. And about the past 10 years, I've been doing a lot of advising, investing, coaching on the side, which I really love. And effective probably about 2 months ago now,
Mm.
moved out of the operating role for the
Okay.
first time in a long time.
Mm.
And I do a mix of coaching, advising, interim roles, and a lot of thought leadership work.
Right.
We co-host, obviously, the HR Heretics podcast, which you know about.
Mhm.
And yeah, you can read more about that. I do have a website. It's just my name, kellidragovich.com. So I'll leave it there.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking us through that, Kelly. Really loved it, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we're gonna uncover a lot of interesting facts about yourself,
Yeah.
your journey, and more about the initiatives that you've run. So, folks, this is what we're gonna do today. I think we're just gonna take Kelly down the memory lane, look at her journey, how her journey spanned as a leader. What did she learn? Kelly, if you would be open to sharing some of your mistakes also with our audience,
Of
that would be
course.
lovely. And then we'll talk about leadership development in general in organizations because
Yeah.
I think that's one of your fortes, right? So we don't want to miss that for sure.
Sounds great.
All right. So I'm gonna jump
Okay.
right in, right? So uh, you've had such a wonderful career, right? Going from large organizations to the venture world and seen so many different kinds of environments that you've worked in, right? So let's start by looking at something significant, about your story. So can you just take us through what it has been like starting in the HR function? As a very young professional, and then fast forward to today.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of unknowns when we start. We have a lot of assumptions, and we have this kind of model in our brain of what's going to happen and how it's going to be. And I think the biggest learning is you don't know how it's going to be.
Yep.
uh, and for me, kind of starting off early in my career, I think the thing I would say is saying yes to everything was really helpful.
Mm.
I basically felt like I had nine part-time jobs at all times
Okay.
in my roles. And I was 21 years old, and I
Mm.
was saying yes to communications projects,
Mm.
L&D projects, compensation projects. It didn't really matter.
Mm.
I was an HR business partner, Ashish,
Mm.
so that's
Mm.
my DNA. So
Mm.
I never was a comp person or a
Mm.
recruiting person. I was an HR BP.
Mm.
And as a people business partner, it's kind of fun because you get to dabble in
Correct.
all of the Centers of excellence. So
Correct.
saying yes to a lot of things allowed me to, one, decide what I was good at and not, decide what I liked and didn't, got to learn everything, which is, I think, a critical thing if you want to be,
Hmm.
a people leader, is to be dangerous in as
Yeah.
many areas as possible.
Yeah.
And then it opened up a bunch of doors
Hmm.
because if you're doing a bunch of things, your visibility rises
Correct.
and you get asked to do other things, namely
Yep.
larger things. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how that happened.
Interesting. So, you said yes to everything, right? Did it come naturally to you? Is that your personality, or did somebody guide you to be able to do that so that you learn? Because saying yes definitely puts a lot of pressure on you yourself as a young professional.
Yeah.
But yeah, it opens up a lot of
Yeah.
learning opportunities, like you said. So, what motivated you to do that?
Yeah, I think it is my personality. I mean, I've always been pretty intense, pretty
Hmm.
action oriented.
Hmm.
It's just who I am. However, I do hear a lot of advice on like be picky and do that. It's like, you know what? No. When
Hmm.
you're young in your career, you meet everyone,
Hmm.
you say yes to everything.
Hmm.
You earn the right to say no
Hmm.
later in your career. And I just kind of was all over the place. The other thing is be a bit fearless about asking for time from
Hmm.
senior folks. I mean, I
Hmm.
was this 21-year-old clueless person at this corporation,
Right.
and into it was pretty buttoned up, a lot of
Right.
senior people. And I'd ask SVPs out for lunch. I'd pepper them with questions.
Nice.
And I just, it's surprising to a lot of people how many folks actually say yes and they want to spend time
Hmm.
with younger folks.
You
And
just
a
have to
lot of
ask.
folks don't
You
do
just have
that
to.
because they're afraid.
Yeah. You just have to ask, right?
You just have to ask. And to this day, I will never turn down a LinkedIn message
Hmm.
or, a young person asking for 10 or 15 minutes of my
Hmm.
time
Hmm.
because we were there.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go back to the time when you became a manager for the first time, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of our audience is from that demographic, the first-time managers, the middle managers
Hmm.
who have just started
Hmm.
managing teams, now. So how did it feel like? I mean, did it come naturally to you, or you had to do something different? So take us through that journey a bit.
Yeah, no, actually, that did not come naturally.
Hmm.
And I grew up playing competitive sports, right? So I was a
Hmm.
collegiate athlete, all these things. And I say that just because it's a parallel metaphor for
Hmm.
me. I was good. I'll say that because you can't really play college. I was good, but I had trouble teaching others. I
Hmm.
had trouble bringing other people along. And I
Hmm.
had coaches tell me, like, you're so great and you're standing out and you're not helping others kind of go along.
Hmm.
And that stuck with me because that's what happened to me in business a bit. I remember when I had my first direct report and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And
Hmm.
I manage them as if I was managing myself.
Yeah.
I manage them. Again, this is the common mistake is that
Hmm.
we work with others how we are trained to work or how we expect ourselves to work.
Hmm.
And that's a mistake.
Hmm.
And so I learned that pretty early, as far as imprinting on each person specifically. And the trick on managers is not can you execute and are you a badass like you were when you were an
Correct.
individual contributor? It's like, can you wrap this team all around you and win their hearts and minds and connect with each one of them
Correct.
and bring them up, which could be, if you have six people on your team, it's six different ways.
Yeah.
So I learned that pretty early to kind of cool the jets and figure out how to bring people along. And it took me a while.
Hmm. So, any anecdotes or examples that you could share? Any incidents that happened that made you realize, hey, you know what, this is not right. I should be changing my approach a little bit.
Yeah, look, I mean, there was a lot of sessions where I'd come in and I realized that, my team didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what I was doing.
Hmm.
And I was executing on
Hmm.
our priorities and our roadmap
Yeah.
as if we were colleagues and I wasn't guiding them.
Right.
And they were like, what are you doing? Like, what is
Yeah.
happening every day? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I've been doing. And that's a common mistake. I mean, the trick on management is can you now work through others?
Correct.
And I think it's even harder now
Hmm.
because many managers are expected, and those of you who are listening, that's great. I'd love to supervise all day,
Yep.
but my resources are cut. organizations are focused on efficiency and I have to execute and lead.
Hmm.
And a lot of managers are player coaches.
Yeah.
So now you have to do both. You have to get
Hmm.
stuff done
Hmm.
and you have to help others get stuff done.
Yeah. Right. And how did this change come across? I mean, did you figure it yourself or somebody gave you feedback around it? Did you have any mentors or guides around you who observed you working and they told you, hey, you know what,
Yeah.
Kelly, this is where you're going wrong and you should
Yeah.
probably try something different?
Yeah, look, I think I'm pretty approachable and somewhat, introspective, I would say.
Hmm.
So I would have chats with people
Hmm.
on my team.
Okay.
That's number one. Is can they tell you?
Hmm.
They could. And at the same time, and this is where I think I have a lot of conversations with people I coach around
Hmm.
spending time in larger organizations, right?
Hmm.
Because those organizations do have great manager training. They do
Right.
have people that have been there and done that. I mean,
Yep.
the management chops at an Intuit and a Yahoo back, it's different than management chops at a 50-person
Hmm.
company.
Hmm.
And so you see a lot of people that have only been at these smaller companies. There is less leadership capability, right? Because
Correct.
it's just their infrastructure is not there. So I did have the benefits of people that have been in this, doing this for 20 something years,
Hmm.
helping me
Yeah.
early on in my career. And that
Right.
was by luck. I didn't join large companies first because of that.
Yeah. So let's talk about these experiences of going through some of these leadership development programs as a participant, right? How was that like?
Yeah.
What were the expectations you had going in? Did they come true when you came out of it? And then what happened after that, right?
Yeah. Yes. I have a pretty strong bias on this, and some people might disagree with me. I did not like the leadership development programs.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, a lot of
Mhm.
people dreaded them. You know
Mhm.
why? Because they were classroom style
Mhm.
programs
Mhm.
back then
Mhm.
that took you out of your work for 3 or 4 days straight.
Yep.
So you had to do the work you do the work at night.
Yep.
They were 8 hours straight of kind of lecture.
Hmm.
And it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm back in school. And what happens in school? Most people don't listen. And they would have tchotchkes, right? Pipe cleaners, fun things to play with.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're listening. It actually
Correct.
might, distract even more. So I struggled with that, Ashish, and a lot of other people I went to these programs have struggled too.
Hmm.
Now, the benefit of these programs was the
Hmm.
community, right? You're
Hmm.
spending
Hmm.
time
Yeah.
with your peers, these
Right.
cohorts. I still talk to some of them from when we
Yep.
went through this at Intuit 20
Yep.
years ago.
Yep.
And that is a big benefit of those programs. But I really struggled with the classroom style. And we know this now, like
Hmm.
attention spans, especially now
True.
with social media and
Correct.
attention spans aren't there. And what would happen is that nothing would really change. You'd check
Hmm.
a box and you'd forget it.
Correct.
And then there was no reinforcement or follow up or very
Mm-hmm.
little.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard to kind of change that day in and
Hmm.
day out. And that
Hmm.
was the reality of L&D, I think 20 years ago when I was kind
Hmm.
of learning it or seeing it for the first time.
And how has that changed now, right? 20 years fast forward, do you think that has changed? Has that evolved to something better? If yes, in what shape and form? If no, what are the shortcomings that still exist today?
Yeah, I think it has changed for the better a
Hmm.
ton. And I
Hmm.
think the thing I would describe is it's now built from like a product manager perspective. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we are building these programs and building these offerings as if, the participants are customers.
Yep.
And we're building it from their shoes back. And what happens with that? Like everyone's different.
Hmm.
So the biggest change I've seen, which I appreciate, is the element of choice
Hmm.
and a menu type approach for different styles of learning. So now you have, right, you have some classroom, you have platforms, you have self-guided, you
Hmm.
have cohort
Hmm.
training,
Hmm.
you have leaders teaching leaders, you
Hmm.
have sound bites and shorter,
Hmm.
right, shorter stints
Hmm.
that last almost like school that
Hmm.
last time, and you have
Right.
reinforcements. And I love that because everyone is different.
Right.
And so that's the biggest thing I can say is now we are building these offerings as if we're
Hmm.
building a product for
Hmm.
customers and thinking of them.
Hmm. Very nicely
That's
put. I
great.
think I love that
Yeah.
sentence that you said, thinking about these programs as you're building for customers, because at the end of the day, they are your customers, right? They need to consume that product and they need to love that product, and then only you get the product market fit, isn't it?
Yes, and we're getting their input on
Yeah.
design.
Correct.
I never was asked how should we build this. I was
Right.
told to
Right.
show up
Right.
at 8 a.m.
Correct.
in this conference room.
True. Yeah. So since we're talking about leadership development, so what's your perspective as an HR leader, Kelli? Recently, I came across a report by Gartner which mentioned that, it's going to be one of the number one priorities for HR teams in the coming year and maybe years. What are your thoughts, from the other side of the table?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think leadership development has become a term just like culture or
Hmm.
engagement, where if you ask 10 people what it means, you'll
Hmm.
get seven different answers.
Hmm.
And so I think it's become kind of this catch-all. And if you asked leaders, what does that mean?
Hmm.
I think you'd get different answers.
Hmm.
So for me, I think it's probably the most important thing we can do for organizations right now.
Hmm.
And I think we have to be very explicit about what that means for those
Hmm.
organizations.
Hmm.
Because some might be, look, we need our leaders to coach others better
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
communicate with their teams better.
Right.
Or for others, we need leaders' skill sets in this
Hmm.
specific area
Hmm.
to increase.
Hmm.
And I just think it's become a bit, I think we need to double click on that.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you say leadership development is important for your organization, what exactly is going to be different
Hmm.
with those leaders? Are they going
Yeah.
to hire differently?
Yeah.
Are they going to fire differently?
Hmm.
Are they going to become more inept to business acumen and the
Yeah.
P&L and all these things that we're
Yeah.
pushing them to be good at now that some have no clue what it is?
Correct.
So there's a lot of different angles on this. And
Hmm.
the biggest thing I can say is, unpack exactly what that means and why and what's different afterwards, because there could be 100
Correct.
different flavors of
True.
what that means.
True. So my follow-up question to you is, right, what does it depend on? And if you were to do it for an organization, say XYZ, how would you start unpacking it and then pack it again back for the consumers in the end?
Yeah, the best thing I can do, or I think any of us can do, is put this in the perspective of what the organization, the business is trying to do. Like,
Hmm.
we don't start with leadership development. We start with, tell me the origin of this company,
Hmm.
why it was founded. Tell me what you're trying to do with it now.
Hmm.
Tell me 2 years from now, if it's successful, what does it look like? Do
Hmm.
you have four new products?
Hmm.
Do you trump the market competitors?
Hmm.
Do you expand geographically? Like, what is the goal
Hmm.
of this organization, of this business 2 years from now?
Yep.
Now tell me what could be all the speed bumps that get in the way of that.
Hmm.
Like, i.e., what must be true to reach that goal?
Hmm.
There has to be a people element.
Yep.
Like, you're not going to get it unless it's, and usually what that means is we're going to need leaders that can evolve. We're going to need leaders that understand the market landscape like they're the back of their hand. We're going to need leaders that can hire the right people and keep them and make them want to work here to get
Yep.
stuff done and execute.
Yep.
We're going to need leaders that can think about operational efficiency and AI and doing more with less. Like, those are usually the pillars. And great. Now let's unpack that. Like, how are you on all those things today? And how do you know that, right? You got to talk to people. You got to analyze it. And then you come up with, okay, we're going to tackle this first. This is the biggest area, whether it's, we have leaders, we have a 35% attrition rate. People are flying out the door. Our leaders cannot retain and motivate people.
Correct.
We have a bunch of talent that's not that great. And we need our leaders to hire more selectively and hire better.
Yep.
Right? Things like that.
Yep. So this is just a 5-minute masterclass, Kelli. So thank you for that.
Yeah. It's easy to start. I'm just saying, it's easy to start with. We're going to put in a leadership development program and create a program on empathy. But why?
Yeah.
Like, what's different?
It has to serve a business goal at the end, right? Otherwise, it's just a checkbox, like you said.
Yeah. And this is why HR has been kind of ignored, for years. Oh, they're on their own island doing their stuff. Like,
the feel good factors.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Totally.
So let's say we are at the end of 2024, right? what would you leave behind in 24 and not repeat in 25 when it comes to leadership development programs and thinking about developing people skills in managers primarily?
So, look, I'm a big fan of leaders teaching leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of, 2024 was a lot of kind of the platforms and the learning thing. And technology is great.
Hmm.
I haven't seen because people have been busy,
Hmm.
resources have been strapped, there's been
Hmm.
layoffs.
Hmm.
It's been really hard to even have time
Correct.
for L&D team. And L&D teams have gotten cut, right? DEI teams, L&D teams. These
Correct.
are the teams that have gotten cut. So
Correct.
it's not like we can say, great, just ramp it up again in 2025
Hmm.
because a lot of those teams don't exist anymore.
Yep.
And we're going to have to get creative. And I think
Hmm.
one of the big things we can do that actually I think is one of the best
Hmm.
ways to develop leaders
Hmm.
is leaders teaching leaders
Hmm.
and leveraging great people in your organization
Yeah.
to help other leaders in the organization. I
Yeah.
don't think HR has ever been like
Yeah.
the experts. Like no one's an expert at this. We are
Correct.
facilitators of this.
Correct.
And I think we will be forced to do this more because of the lack of
Yep.
resources.
Yep.
But I also think it's one of the best ways to develop leaders is have
Hmm.
them talk to each other,
Hmm.
whether that's within one company and
Hmm.
across
Hmm.
companies.
Hmm. This is fabulous, right? So one of the things that I keep hearing whenever I talk to L&D leaders in particular, right? The core challenges that they typically face are more around learner engagement dropping maybe after the program ends, or
Mm-hmm.
how do they bring scale into their programs? For example, in the current modes, they have very limited capacities, and with layoffs, the capacities have even reduced further, right? How can they start looking at things differently to be able to scale things and bring continuous modes of learning?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think again, we need to shift from being the delivery method and the expert
Yeah.
to facilitators of this process.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing for me. And
Hmm.
when we are facilitators of this process, we are bringing others together to help teach.
Yeah.
Um, and as far as, and that's a great way to scale it, right?
Hmm.
Cohorts, this and
Hmm.
that, working with
Hmm.
a small group of leaders and they become your teachers, like train
Hmm.
the trainer type of
Hmm. Hmm.
approaches.
Hmm.
And the follow up, I mean, for me, it's like people don't really want to listen to HR, right? It's like, but they will listen to their peers. They
That's
will
true.
listen to people that are doing this with them,
Yeah.
right? They like if I go to an L&D course and an HR person's kind of talking at me, and then I get invited by them 3 months later, I feel like it's a look. I respect the function a lot,
Yep.
but I feel like it's a school thing, right?
Yep.
We got to go here and we got to check
Yep.
the box. But if I get invited like every week and it's like people that are grinding with me and leaders that I respect and 2 levels above, and
Hmm.
I'm seeing them every day, like I'm going and
Yeah.
I'm listening, and it just means something different. That's all.
Correct.
So again, I think my takeaway is how do we involve other leaders in this type of work to help
Hmm.
us and we
Hmm.
become facilitators,
Yep.
not conveyors.
Hmm. Awesome. All right. I'm gonna just flip the
Yeah.
needle now, right? Mm, AI is a hot topic right now. And what is your take on AI in HR to start with, and then learning in particular, right? Where do you sit?
Yeah. Yeah, look, it is a hot topic. I feel like everyone's like, "What's your AI strategy?" And you have to have one. And
Hmm.
that was kind of the hot thing, 6 months ago. And I
Hmm.
think people are now slowing down,
Hmm.
wising up a bit, and
Hmm.
saying having AI just for the sake of AI is silly.
True.
Like it's just like why do you have leadership development? Why do you
Hmm.
have AI? And
Hmm.
it can help in different ways. And I do think in the L&D space, it can help with the scale thing that you brought up,
Hmm.
Ashish,
Hmm.
because for lack of resources, right, you don't have an 8-person L&D team anymore, but you
Yep.
do have an AI platform
Hmm.
that can simulate coaching for
Hmm.
300 managers
Yep.
at the tip of your fingers. Like
Yep.
that is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, and you can build these simulations just
Yep.
as you're having issues in your organization, this one
Right.
issue or this
Hmm.
one skill set.
Yep.
And I think it's a great way to scale some baseline stuff,
Hmm.
because these simulations, they look and talk and act like people,
Right.
and if I can create, 30 of me, that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
you know? So I think that's a big one. And
Hmm.
there's other things out there, predictive analytics,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
leadership and what makes leaders successful here. Can we
Hmm.
can we science make that a science at all
Yeah.
and recruit in different ways because of
Right.
that?
Right.
Can we assess leaders at scale in different
Right.
ways? So I
Right.
think you're going to see a lot of those things. Again,
Hmm.
the AI movement,
Hmm.
it's turning everyone, not just HR. It's
Yep.
turning us all into facilitators
Yep.
and masterminds of this
Yep.
stuff versus
Yep.
hands.
Right.
Like the AI now becomes the hands that we were
Yep.
15 years ago. But our brains still need to be there
Yep.
to create this situation. And,
Correct.
unless 20 years from now,
Correct.
like I
Correct.
become a robot and AI can
Correct.
do all that too. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you know what? I think 2024 has been a very difficult year for the entire community, I would say. I think HR leaders have gone through a lot in terms of carrying that heavy emotional load,
Yeah.
supporting organizations through a lot of changes, navigating burnout and having so many difficult conversations, right? How do you see 2025 coming? Right? I know we don't have a crystal ball, but if you could have a magic wand and you would wish something for 2025, what would that be? And how should the HR community tread their way to be able to make sure that, we have a stronger seat at the table by the end of it?
Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic for
Hmm.
2025. Being here in the Bay Area and just having networks, I do feel like, the soil is loosening up a bit.
Hmm.
Even though a lot of these roles and this growth isn't out there yet, it's it's
Yep.
it's underground, and I feel good about that. And
Hmm.
look, when things are moving forward and you're building and you're not tearing down, it becomes fun
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
So I do think there will be more elements of optimism and fun
Hmm.
this year,
Hmm.
which is great because that keeps us going. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like
Yep.
you want to wake up to build, not to like
Absolutely.
tear things down.
Correct.
Um, the thing that I would say, Ashish, is I don't think, and I've told this to my team even the past 2 years, do not force things.
Hmm.
Like we wake up and we're like, oh, we got to do an engagement
Yep.
program and a
Hmm.
hire. Like, no, you don't.
Hmm.
Like the business actually wants less than
Correct.
more. Like
Correct.
everyone's tired, not
Yep.
just HR.
Yep.
Everyone's freaking
Yep.
tired and under pressure. Revenue pressures will continue. Be a business partner and engage in that stuff more than ancillary
Yep.
programs that you throw out from HR
Hmm.
Island. Like, don't
Hmm.
worry about all that.
Yep.
Just have a point of view again on where this business is going 2 years from now, and what are the things that must be true to get there.
Hmm.
And that's not all HR stuff.
Yep.
So let's not try to fill everyone's cup with a bunch of HR stuff so we
Hmm.
can feel like we're executing and we're busy, because
Yep.
that will backfire. So that's my kind of thing is less is more
Less is more.
this year.
Hmm.
Um, which I think the organization appreciates too.
Yeah. And I'm gonna pose the last question, which I think is going to tie up with your leadership journey as well. So we'll bring everything back together, Kelly. One of the most important things I think when you're thinking about less is more and coming from 2024 and going into a little bit optimistic 2025, isn't ROI going to become more and more important? That whatever initiatives that you're running or launching, it's going to be
Yeah.
easier for you to have your say if you are able to demonstrate value in a much stronger manner, right? And
Yeah.
how have you done that in the past, which let's say we can reflect back on and then take those instances forward. So I think if you can share some of those examples, that would be really valuable for some of the executives hearing us today.
Yeah, of course. So I think that, look, this has always been true. The best people teams and the best people leaders have always demonstrated ROI. It's just in the past 2 or 3 years, we've been forced to do it. So those that haven't done it have been
Hmm.
forced to do it.
Hmm.
So, which is good because it'll be kind of, level setting
Correct.
a new way of working. Um, and a lot of HR leaders I coach are like, well, I don't know how to tie that to the bottom line or the top line. And I'm
Hmm.
like, look, everything you do can be tied to the top line or the bottom line.
Hmm.
It might take like 5 layers
Yep.
of correlation and connection, but everything you do can be tied to the top or bottom line. So one, if you're ask like how is this coaching program or this L&D program I have in the organization helping us make money or save money? How does it do that? Well, if you have better leaders, right, they're keeping more people. We know that losing people costs 1.5 to 2x salary. Great, calculate that. And all in, fully loaded, right? Benefits, all the things.
True.
We know that great leaders execute better. Great. Are we going to ship product faster? What does that mean as far as revenue? Involve your finance people. They love doing these calculations.
True.
You don't have to do it. Just be like, hey, like if we do this, tell me about if we ship a product a month early, what does that mean? Like they'll love to geek out on that.
Right.
You can make that calculation. Other things I think, are vital. I call them the vital health metrics. We used to say, what's the happiness score and what's the employee net promoter score? And we'd kind of like, dude, what's the revenue per employee?
Right.
Like I think that will become a table stakes metric for people teams. And it's not owned by people teams, but that is a North Star that I can use to say, listen, I have the biggest line item on the P&L. The cost of our people is more money than all of you put. So I have the best way and the levers to influence revenue per employee, which is a big deal as far as like the magic number and profitability and all these things. So can you talk to all these things? The last thing I'll say is if you're struggling with this or intimidated, make your FP&A partner and your sales ops partner your best friends. Okay. They love this stuff. They see the whole organization. They should be quarterbacks when it comes to this stuff. And the three of you could do some damage as far as like ROI on different levers and different work that the HR teams are doing.
Awesome. Loved it, Kelli. Thank you so much. That was my last question. Any parting thoughts that you have for our audience today?
It might sound trite or kind of Pollyanna, and I'm not, as you can probably imagine, but like you got to have a little fun with it. We have to have some humor and laugh. This role actually can be fun if you can believe it or not. So I think just remembering that we're all humans and to take things a little lighter. I think we forget sometimes and we get so wrapped around the axle and we're grabbing the wheel so strongly, and that can actually hurt us in a lot of ways. So, try and take it by stride, have a little fun and move forward.
Awesome. Well, rightly said, Kelli. Thank you so much for those final words today. So there you have it, folks. I think this is gonna be a really, really interesting masterclass. I hope you did have fun and enjoy. If you have more questions, do reach out to Kelli. Kelli, we're gonna put your website address in the description, so folks feel free to reach out to Kelli. Like she said, she's approachable on LinkedIn. That's how I connected with her. So there you have it. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining in, folks. Thank you, Kelli. Loved having you.
Thank you for having me. This is great. Thanks, Ashish.
Bye, folks. Take care.